Your own take on all of this, the repercussions for AI startup ecosystem more broadly, Sarah. Is it that it becomes more competitive? Is it that it becomes more concerning of profits vis-a-vis safety?
I honestly think the biggest takeaway about this isn't going to be about AI. I think it's going to be about corporate governance. This on the heels of everything that happened with FTX, and obviously could not be more different situations. But in both cases, you have companies that have been super, super hot, raised billions of dollars, and there's no board. There's no traditional corporate governance. And so when things go sideways, they tend to go sideways in a really big way and catch a lot of people unawares. Venture is a business where we usually like to sort of handle the messy stuff a little bit quietly. And that's really impossible to do when there's no board, no traditional board, just sort of say, let's sit down and hash this out.
Quietly, we're reporting that one possible outcome is that there's a transitional board, right? Sam Altman joins this transitional board as a director. As a venture capitalist, if somebody put in front of you the opportunity to participate in the tender, which we believe is still pending, based on that information I just gave you, would you take an allocation?
I do early stage ventures, so they are out of range, and that's all I'll say. But, the reality is that I think that this is going to be a moment where the investors around the table say, look, we played by your rules. You started as a nonprofit. You had this capped profit model. You had this board that didn't directly oversee, and wasn't necessarily a fiduciary to the for-profit arm. I have a feeling that if Sam comes back, that is all going to change, possibly in a good way for him, but I think probably in a way that's a bit more investor and for-profit friendly as well.
Overall, early stage investment outlook right now, there was this thesis at one point when indeed we thought that Sam was going to be sticking with Microsoft, is that OpenAI talent might not just go there, and they might go off and start creating their own businesses. One founder telling us that yesterday. Are you seeing as much exuberance about building AI companies at the smaller check range at the moment?
So, it's structurally hard to build a true AI company, right? Foundational models, it takes billions and billions of dollars worth of compute power. We've heard reports this year of VCs who are actually going out and, getting compute space, getting cloud space, buying chips, AI chips, so that they can use that as sort of an enticement to founders. And the other reality is it's not just enough to be sort of smart and hungry. When you're talking about building in these kind of foundational AI spaces, you really need serious engineering chops, and not a ton of people have them. So, certainly the bloom is a bit off the rose right now at OpenAI. And I think that, when things change, they tend to stay somewhat changed. And so we might see people, who were planning to stick around a couple more years, the macro environment's not great. They, liked what they were doing at OpenAI, who are now, sitting there saying, have whiplash and feel like, wow, maybe I do want to go out on my own. And that's not necessarily a bad thing.